Hi, everyone. My name is Parminder Savalia, and I'm the manager of the Department of Community Health and Community Benefit at Valley Hospital. Thank you for joining us today. We are here at Valley's Center for Health and Wellness with our physical therapist, Tasneem Abu Hakme. She specializes in pelvic floor therapy. So, like always, we have some awesome giveaways that Tess has picked out. She's picked out a pack of 3 resistance bands. So that is one of the prizes, as well as a small exercise ball. If you want to be entered to win them, introduce yourself in the chat, ask a question, and engage with us. And we'll pick a winner next week. Also, just to let you know, if you have any questions at any time during this particular Facebook Live, please put it into the chat, and we'll be answering questions at the end. So I'm now going to pass it off to Tess to give us some tips on strengthening our pelvic floors. Thanks, Tess.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tess. I'm a pelvic floor therapist here with Valley. I work in the Valley Lifestyle building in Mahwah. This is where our pelvic floor team is. So if at any point in the presentation you feel like there are things that I talk about that feel relevant to you and you would like to, come and hang out with us here and have an evaluation, definitely look into, I think we could provide you guys with the exact information of where we are located maybe later on. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about what the pelvic floor is. So here is my fun pelvic floor diagram. As you can see, all this pink here on the inside and the outside is muscle. So our pelvic floor is a group of muscles that support some really important everyday functions. So as I said, pelvic floor supports those important functions, and as pelvic floor therapists, we work on educating you on what those on those functions, on if you guys are having any issues with those things. We might provide you with some manual therapy to those areas, provide you with exercise, and a home exercise program to make you as independent as you can be in your journey towards recovery with that. We are here to help you, to answer your questions, to help you improve your quality of life as best as we can and get you on track to your goals. So in the example of what we're talking about today, we're talking about a lot of postpartum care, things like that. So some really popular and common pelvic floor dysfunctions that you might experience postpartum. There are definitely a few of those, but I just want to keep in mind that just because some of these pelvic floor dysfunctions are common does not mean that they are normal. And if you do have them, I definitely encourage you to seek a pelvic floor therapist for some help with those issues. So some of those issues that you might have experienced or have heard of might be urinary incontinence. So like when you're coughing and you pee your pants a little bit, or if you sneeze or jump or you run after one of your kids, something like that. Or if you're feeling like sudden urgency and you're running to the bathroom and you leak a little bit on the way there. You might also be experiencing some bowel leakage. Constipation is another thing that's really common. I know you experience it during pregnancy, but you also might experience it following after pregnancy. Painful intercourse can be common. Pelvic or low back pain might be something that you're experiencing. Heaviness, pressure, or bulging at the low pelvis might be something that you're concerned about. Abdominal bulging, so like maybe when you're getting out of bed, you might notice a little bit of doming coming right here at your abdomen. Or if you've had a cesarean delivery, you might be experiencing some sensitivity at the scar tissue, or maybe when you move around or do something, you might feel like maybe too much pulling. Likewise, if you've had a vaginal delivery and there was, maybe some tearing or an episiotomy done, that scar tissue might be sensitive or uncomfortable. Maybe, when you're sitting, or maybe, with intercourse or with other things. So these are all things that if you notice or feel like are relevant to you, to keep, in the back of your mind and think about possibly seeking, an evaluation for pelvic floor therapy, because it can definitely be beneficial to helping you manage those symptoms. You shouldn't have to live with them. Even if they're common, does not mean they're normal, and does not mean you have to settle for living with those symptoms. So getting into, the bulk of what we're talking about today is some exercise. I know a lot of times when we think of our pelvic floor, we think of Kegels and Kegels this, Kegels that. We got to do Kegels to make our pelvic floor strong, but Kegels are not for everybody. So I just want that to be a disclaimer that that Kegels are are great for, some of us, and they're, they might be something that we want to hold off on for other people. So some instances in which you don't want to use Kegels would be, for example, if you have maybe an overactive pelvic floor or a tightness in your pelvic floor. So some signs of having an overactive pelvic floor might be pain with intercourse, pain with sitting, maybe just having some general vaginal pain, or issues with peeing or pooping, being constipated, things like that might be signs of a tight pelvic floor. And in that case, you might want to focus on more pelvic floor relaxation type exercises instead of pelvic floor strengthening like a Kegel. So you might want to hold off on the Kegel until we improve the relaxation of our pelvic floor. So an example of why we don't want to do that is, take my bicep, for example. If my bicep was only, it was really tight and I could only move it from here to here, then every time I go to do, a Kegel or a biceps contraction, I'd be tightening that muscle more. I'd just be getting it tighter and tighter and tighter. So what we want to do is relax that muscle all the way out here, and then, work on strengthening after. Because if we're really tight, then we're not going to get that full intensity of, strength, being able to be as coordinated. So we definitely want to work on relaxation first. So that being said, I want to work on some pelvic floor relaxation exercises first, just to start. These are great for everybody. They're great for individuals who have overactive pelvic floors and tightness. They're also great if you have low back pain, if you have, maybe you had a cesarean, and this will just, help you with relaxation as well. Good for flexibility and general mobility. So we're going to get into some of those exercises first. The first thing that we're going to do is something called diaphragmatic breathing. It is a type of breathing exercise, and I know breathing just sounds super simple, but breathing and the pelvic floor and all that, it is essential for a healthy core coordination and healthy pelvic floor coordination. So we definitely want to address our breathing first. If we are not breathing with good coordination and with using diaphragmatic breathing, for example, then we are not giving our core or our pelvic floor a chance to lengthen as much as it could, and a chance to be, as coordinated as it could. So when we breathe in, we'd want to be able to see movement at our abdomen and at our, rib area. We would want to see this area expand. So I'm just going to show you briefly here, and then we're going to do it together if you guys would like to. You would be breathing in for diaphragmatic breathing here, breathing in, seeing your belly get nice and big, and that's okay. We got to let our belly go sometimes, and then just let it go back. So what happens when we do that is that when we breathe in, our diaphragm pushes down on our pelvic organs. The pelvic organs push down a little bit on our pelvic floor. Everything kind of lengthens. Our pelvic floor lengthens. Our abdominal muscles come out this way and they lengthen. And then as we go back, it all recoils back in. So that's giving our pelvic floor a chance to relax in the day. It's giving it this coordination all day of going into a longer position and going into a shorter position. So that is really important. So that is why breathing is essential to properly engaging our core and properly engaging our pelvic floor. And you're going to see I'm going to use that same diaphragmatic breath through most, if not all, of the exercises that we do today. So if you want to try that out now, I'm going to lay it down for you guys. I would encourage you to try it out for the first time, maybe lying down if you haven't done it before. You can also do it in sitting. It's great to do it in every position, but lying down is a great position to do it because it lets you really focus on relaxing your shoulders and your neck. Because a lot of us love to breathe into our chest. Quite often when I ask patients to show me a nice deep breath, I see this. Okay, so we want to really try to emphasize here. So lying down can be really helpful for that. So I'm just going to lie down this way. You guys can see my belly, right? And I'm going to put my hands over my ribs here. I'm going to make sure that my shoulders and my neck are nice and relaxed. I'm going to breathe into my belly. And you can slowly pick up, increasing the length of each breath, maybe up to 4 seconds at a time for each inhale and for each exhale. You don't want to be pushing into your belly. You just want it to be nice and gentle. Do a couple of those. Great, awesome. So keep that breath in mind. We're definitely going to be using it in our future, couple exercises. So more exercises that definitely help you with pelvic floor relaxation. Like I said, these are great for anybody. There's a lot of, yoga type exercises in pelvic floor PT that we use to relax. So you might be familiar with some of the exercises that I do today. So one of them that's really, really great, and as long as you don't have any other orthopedic conditions in terms of like your knees, is a child's pose, because you're putting yourself in a nice relaxed position for your pelvic floor, and then you could also use your deep breathing as you sit in that pose and promote further relaxation of your pelvic floor. Okay, so I'm going to go into that position. I can probably do that. Okay, so you put your toes in together here. Have your knees maybe like on the outside of a yoga mat if you're on a yoga mat, or wherever you are. Have your knees out and then feet toes together. Or whatever works best for you. Listen to your body. If something doesn't feel right for you, I could also show you a modification of a way to get a similar exercise after you've done this. Okay, so you go and you kind of sit on your feet and you reach forward and you do that nice deep breathing again here. So breathing into your belly, letting your belly fall. We do not need to keep our belly nice and tight here. Okay, so breathing into the belly and then again. Great. So you can do that for like a minute or two. It's a really nice way to start exercising. It's really relaxing and therapeutic. If you have toddlers, sometimes you can get them to jump in and do this with you. Kids, I did used to work with kids a while ago when I was in school, and kids really loved yoga. I did yoga with them all the time, so you could try to make it exciting and maybe get them on board with you too. So another really great one would be, you could lie on your back for this one. It'd be like a nice little knee to chest type of exercise. This one's really great for helping lengthen the muscles around here, and likewise, you could do some nice breathing. You could either do one leg at a time, knee to chest, and you can even move the leg out, or you could do both together, knee to chest, and doing your nice powerful breathing. I guess likewise, you could bring the legs both out. You could even go into a nice child's pose and bring your feet up to you and come out like this. You would want to feel a nice stretch in here for this one. Don't hold your breath when you're stretched. That's a common thing I see, and you definitely just want to make sure you're always cueing yourself to breathe. Okay. So another really basic one that you can do while you're lying in bed, maybe before you go to bed, maybe when you wake up in the morning, or just lying down on the floor watching TV, whatever you're doing, is a butterfly stretch. You could do this one lying down, or you could do this one sitting. So you could put both of your legs out like this, like a butterfly, and then you could just put some pressure on to add in the stretch. For some people, this might not feel like enough of a stretch, so sometimes coming up into sitting can make it a little bit more intense. So you come up like this, and you can push down like with your elbows a little. You don't want to do it too much. Try to bring your posture up and do those nice breaths with that. Remember, we're not holding our breath with our exercise. Let me turn around so you can see better. Okay, and then one thing before I forget, I wanted to show you that modification for the child's pose, where if you didn't feel comfortable going on your knees, you can maybe be at like the kitchen counter or something that's like at the table that you have, and kind of do something similar to a standing, where you would put your hands on the table. Sorry, I'm waiting for this to come up. And you would just lean back. Oops, sorry, I can't see me. Leaning back like that. Here you could do the nice breathing into your belly, letting your belly fall. Okay, so that's that modification for child's pose if you don't like, sitting on your legs. Sorry, just waiting for this table.
So while that goes down, you've got a question.
Okay, what's up?
Does your pelvic floor floors get weaker with every pregnancy or delivery?
No, not necessarily. Everyone's journey through pregnancy is different, so your pelvic floor, with pregnancy, you don't necessarily have to try to do Kegels all the time and all that and have a necessarily strong pelvic floor when you're going to delivery, because your pelvic floor is really its role during delivery is staying out of the way. So maybe based on your symptoms, you might have some discoordination of your pelvic floor. Maybe your pelvic floor needs like a gentle reminder of how to work properly, but it does not necessarily indicate that you will always be a little bit weaker after every delivery. That's not the case. Everybody presents differently after they have a baby, so it really just depends on you. Do you have symptoms? Do you have anything going on that would indicate weakness or maybe tightness? Sometimes we are weak because we are tight. Likewise, when I was talking about the bicep, you might be more on the tight side, and that therefore you're developing weakness. And if you could address the tightness, you'd get a lot of your strength back following that as well. So, the amount of pregnancies you have does not determine the strength or the weakness of your pelvic floor.
One more question.
What's up?
So are there any modifications for exercise, those exercises that you did that are on your back? So modifications of things that are not on your back.
So doing some of them off of your back. So the butterfly pose, like I said, you could do in sitting. The other one, the child's pose, you could also do something similar to it in standing. The knee to chest coming out. I mean, like the butterfly pose in sitting is similar to that. You can also just sit and like have your leg kind of hanging off somewhere and bring your leg to your side that way. Let me see which ones I had gone over already. The diaphragmatic breathing, you don't have to do it on your back. You could do it in any position. So you could do it here in sitting, or you could do it in standing, or you could do it on all fours. You could do it in basically every position, and it is good to do it in any position because, in our life, we don't really spend most of our time on our back, so it's always great to do things in different positions. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit with, doing core contractions and pelvic floor contractions because, definitely making things more functional to do it in different positions. Was there a specific exercise of those? So one of them I didn't do yet was a piriformis stretch or a figure 4 stretch. That one's a really easy one to do in sitting too. You just cross your leg over here like a number 4, and you could push into this knee here and lean forward a little. You feel it in your butt right on the side that's over here. You can also do this exercise lying down. So some people prefer lying down, some people prefer sitting. So you can pull this other leg in, and you get a similar stretch. Okay. Was there one that you had specifically had in mind that I did not address?
I'll let you know if it comes through.
Okay, awesome. So that was another relaxation exercise, and then another one that's really great for low back mobility and just coordinating your breath is something called a cat-cow. That's another popular yoga pose. This one would be on all fours. You can do something similar in sitting. You'd be on all fours like this, and you would inhale as your back and head go up into this extended position. Let that belly fall, and then you would exhale as you go down. Slowly inhale and fall. Okay, so in terms of like repetitions for exercises like that, with ones that are like more like movements like that, you can do that for maybe 20 times, like for a couple sets of 10, break them up. For the stretches are really great to do for about 30-second holds, 3 to 5 times 30-second holds. If 30 seconds feels like a really long time, you could break it into like 15 seconds. As long as in the end you're kind of at about 90 to 120 seconds, that would benefit you the most. Okay, so those are some of our relaxation type exercises. Of course, there are so many more. Yoga is really great for promoting relaxation, but just remembering that key principle of making sure your breath is not staying up here at your chest and shoulders. We want to, a lot of times when we're feeling anxious or, walking around in our day-to-day, we tend to tighten our belly and bring everything up at our chest. We want to remind ourselves that when we're walking, it's okay to let your belly go, and making sure we're breathing into over here sometimes and not just over here. So those are some of our, really great relaxation exercises. Diaphragmatic breathing is your best friend. You want to do it whenever you can. You do it first thing in the morning, a little before bed. You definitely can do it while you're on the toilet. That's a really great place to do it. It's really helpful for having bowel movements and even urinating if you feel like, that's something that's difficult for you as well. Okay, so going into some strengthening type exercises and principles, we have our pelvic floor muscle contraction, and we have also our deep core muscle, which is our transverse abdominis. So these muscles work in synergy, they work together, they really do not, separate too often. When you're using one, you tend to be using the other. So it's great to think of them as together. That's our deep core and our pelvic floor working together. Going back to that disclaimer, if you feel like you might have a tight pelvic floor, doing the Kegels might not be something that is appropriate for you right now, but definitely can be something that you can look into later on if you feel like it is right for you. So for the Kegel, it is easier to do it for the first time while you are on your back. You have a little bit of a better sensation doing it while lying down first, and you can transition to different positions, and I definitely would encourage you to transition to different positions because, like we said, we live our life sitting and standing, but sometimes just to get that coordination down starting on our back is the easiest thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So for our pelvic floor contraction, our pelvic floor, we want to do our nice diaphragmatic breathing, because remember how we said when we breathe in, our pelvic floor lengthens and relaxes, and as we exhale, it kind of recoils and goes into a small contraction. So we want to use that momentum that our body is already giving us to go into a bigger contraction. So contracting your pelvic floor would be the sensation of feeling like you're holding in your pee or maybe holding back some gas. You could also imagine yourself picking up a blueberry with your vagina. That is a fun way to, contract your pelvic floor. I find that cue helps a lot of my patients the most, picking up a blueberry with their vagina, okay? So I want you to do that nice breath into your belly. Okay, and then exhale and draw your pelvic floor in. Or hold in your pee, or hold in that gas, or pick up that blueberry. And then you just reset after that. Take a nice breath in. Exhale. Lift and bring everything in. It's very subtle. You're not squeezing everything you have. You're not squeezing your butt with this. It is a different sensation than that. It is, you're trying to focus more of your attention towards the front side and pick everything up and draw in from there. Another thing is you could think of like sucking in a really thick smoothie. That might help you. There's always different little cues that help different people. Different things help. Everybody is unique with that. So next thing is going into our transverse abdominis activation, which is our deep core. It is a really, really important muscle. It provides so much stability and helps out the pelvic floor a lot. So you can it'll feel similar to a Kegel because you might have that same sensation of bringing in to hold in your pee. But I want you to also focus on these two kind of bones that you have right in the front here, almost as if you're trying to fold your body in half. You're not tightening your core super, super tight. You're not holding your breath. You always want to make sure you're exhaling with the effort to contract that muscle. It's very subtle. It's very deep. You won't necessarily feel a big pop into your hand or anything like that. Okay, so you're going to reset. You're going to breathe into your belly. And you're going to exhale. Draw those bones in and bring everything up. So it's going to feel like everything's kind of just lifting up, both at the pelvic floor and at your core, bringing everything in. Okay, do that again. And little lift. Okay, awesome. So
You got a live question while doing that. So what are the most important pelvic floor exercises to do during
I would say definitely. I mean, it depends on what your experience is, what you're going through, what the symptoms you have are. But I would probably promote, more relaxation, especially towards the end of your pregnancy, because you want a nice, relaxed pelvic floor before you're ready for delivery. You don't want your pelvic floor getting in your way while you're trying to push out the baby. So you want, definitely working on those mobility type exercises, flexibility type exercises, the deep breathing, doing it all the time. The breathing is also great because you're going to be doing so much of those that breathing while you're in labor and everything like that. So definitely promoting relaxation is great for especially that third trimester.
Now,
Okay?
what about after? Would you say then it's strengthening after?
It really depends on what you're going through. I can't say 100% one way or the other.
Sure.
If you felt like any of those symptoms I mentioned regarding pelvic floor overactivity or what you're experiencing, then I would start with the relaxation. If you feel like that's not really what you're experiencing at all, you don't really have anything crazy going on, then you can do the strengthening, but only if you need it. If you don't need strengthening, then you might be making your muscles tighter when you don't need them. Like if you have no symptoms, then I wouldn't necessarily I would work on strengthening of your body in general, but I wouldn't go around doing 100 Kegels a day or something. So I do have time. Because right. But I think I have. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go over another exercise. This is the ball that I think, a similar ball to the one that's going to be given away. This is a great one for engaging your pelvic floor. And, you could use it for a bunch of other exercises too. For this one, it helps engage your hip adductor muscles, but it helps, bring them in with your pelvic floor and deep core too. You could do this in sitting. You could do this in lying down. Like I said, starting off lying down tends to be the easiest way for most people, especially when they're new to use it, engaging and, figuring out how to use their pelvic floor. It's similar to what we were doing before. You'd want to start with that breath in and exhale, squeeze the ball and bring everything in. Okay, and you let it go. You'd want, again, go ahead and breathe in, exhale, squeezing, and as you're squeezing, you're lifting your pelvic floor and tightening that deep core at the same time. Right, and at home, if you don't have a ball like this, you can just fold up a pillow. Or if you have a yoga block, you can use a yoga block. You don't have to have a ball to get this done. You could use, like I said, a pillow that's folded in half and put it there as well. You could do similar exercises sitting where you're squeezing, holding it for 3 seconds or so and letting go while you're engaging that pelvic floor and core. Okay? So as you can see, a lot of these exercises build off of each other. We started with just the Kegel, and then we put it together with the transverse abdominis, and now we're using this. This is great because it helps initiate some movement with your pelvic floor contractions, bringing your legs in, because, we want to be able to contract our pelvic floor while we move and use it if, we have weakness at our pelvic floor. We want to make it as functional as we can. Okay, another thing that you could do is a bridge. A lot of times during pregnancy, our glutes become weaker just from posture. The glute muscles are kind of inhibited a little, and we tend to lose some of that. But we got during pregnancy, so you definitely want to work on improving your glute activation. And likewise, you can engage your pelvic floor and core with this. So for this, you want to prepare with an inhale, and then exhale and go up. And then squeeze your glutes and bring everything in, both that pelvic floor and core. Squeezing your butt, bringing it all in, and then coming back down and resetting. Inhale again. Exhale up. Squeeze that glute and bring everything in. Okay? And then, you can always make bridges harder. You could add resistance around your legs and, have something that's forcing you to be stable. You could add the ball into the mix. You can carry your baby on your belly if you wanted to make it a little bit harder too. So there's always ways that you can make an exercise harder if it's starting to feel too easy. You can also increase your repetitions or increase the hold. You want to make sure that with the bridge that your feet are in pretty close to your butt. You don't want them to be all the way out here because then it would be a little bit too easy. You want it to really be here so you can engage your glutes better. Okay?
Thank you. So I guess as we're getting towards the end, the one question is, are there any resources online that maybe someone like any websites or anything that you recommend?
There are some other like pelvic floor therapists, that have created like really great social media content. So I mean, you could definitely like look up that if you felt like you wanted something that's a little bit more easy to access. Some of them have blogs. So I know that that's been a recent thing, especially like in COVID. A lot of them had more time to make really great social media. I mean, if you could probably like look it up and find something easily like on Instagram. I don't know to recommend a specific one. I do follow some because I am a fan of some other pelvic floor therapists. Do you want me to mention some of those names, or?
I think that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Basically, it's really they should call, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you feel like you have any specific issues and concerns, I would definitely encourage you to speak to a pelvic floor therapist directly. Even if you come in, for an evaluation and consultation stuff one time, if you feel like you're really nervous about coming in and you're not so sure, you can always give us a call and we can schedule a time that I can call you and talk to you. I've done that with some patients before. Because it is a very sensitive and personal thing sometimes. So if you're nervous about coming in, I'd rather you kind of get to talk to a pelvic floor therapist directly to make sure that you feel comfortable and hopefully can come in and address the concerns that you have. Because like we said, even though some of these symptoms are common, does not mean that they're normal and does not mean that you have to live with them. Yeah, should I go over a couple more exercises?
I think we're coming towards the end.
Okay, no problem. Let's go through. Okay, awesome. Great. Was there any other questions? No?
No, that's it. Okay, you want to wrap up?
I mean, I think, generally, like I said, going back to that, although a lot of things have been told to us are, very normal after we've had babies, like, oh, peeing your pants is just a part of being a mom, or, intercourse is not supposed to be that comfortable, things like that. These are things that a lot of people have been told over, whether it's from family, from doctors, from, other places, or friends, different things over the years. Just because things can be, considered common, does not mean that they're normal. And there is never a time that it's too late for you to come into pelvic floor therapist. I see moms who come in 4 to 6 weeks after delivery. I see moms who come in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 40 years. I've seen people in their 90s come in. So it is never too late to come into pelvic floor PT and, address the concerns that you have. Because, we want you to live with the best quality of life that you can. And that is definitely what our goal is for you guys. So if you have any other questions, definitely, you just,
send them in.
Yeah, send them in. All right, awesome. It was great to meet you guys today.
Thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you at our next Facebook Live. Take care.